Good morning. This is Raymond Drumsta. I am with Trooper Jack Keller, the Public Information Officer from Troop D, that's Central New York, and he's here to talk a little bit about road rage and what it means for drivers and all of us everywhere. So how are you doing today, Jack?
Good. How are you, Ray?
I'm excellent. I'm good to be talking to you. How long have you been with law enforcement or the state police?
I've been with the state police for about 23 years now.
23 years. Wow, that's a long time. So
Yep.
how much of that time did you spend on what they call road patrol?
Well, of that 4 years, the first 4 years, I was on regular patrol duties. And then after that, I was put in this position, which is basically liaison between our agency and the public, especially the news agencies that are out there.
All right, so you have some good experience enforcing the laws on the road.
Correct. I worked interstate patrol, which is a specific patrol on 81, runs north to south in the middle of central New York.
Busy road, huh?
Correct. Yeah. So you get a lot of volume on 81.
Oh, of course. So uh, help us out here. Define road rage for me. What does it mean? What do we mean by this term?
Well, road rage is defined in many ways, but for us, it's more of a angry or hostile state, which can increase to a motorist who's got some feelings, and then it can lead to violent criminal acts or attempted acts that result in the operation of a motor vehicle, which can include threatening manner and some other things that eventually can lead somebody into a more serious crime.
Wow, wow. What kind of behaviors doesn't it include?
Some of the, and this is something that you see more now, you hear about, but also it kind of correlates with what they call with aggressive driving.
Sure.
But unlike aggressive driving, which usually involves some kind of traffic violations, road rage is more of an elevated form of aggressive driving that carries some criminal consequences. This is because they're endangering, the threatening, and assaulting possibly of another person, which can result in fines, jail time, or court order probation or suspension. And some of those things might include speeding, frequently changing lanes without direction, passing on the shoulder, and basically what I've experienced is that something has happened in that driver or that motorist's life recently, that their emotions have kind of taken over, their feelings towards other drivers is not something they consider,
Mhm.
and they start to do things they normally probably wouldn't do. For example, shouting, and this is something you see quite often, shouting, excessive use of a horn even, and sometimes you'll see this as obscene gestures.
Wow. So these behaviors obviously are dangerous for other drivers. Now, is excessive use of the horn necessarily a thing that could be represent a danger to a driver, another
No,
driver?
yeah, so it's not a one thing that you can really put your hand or your finger on. It's more of a culmination of things. It's a pattern that somebody does, just because you use your horn doesn't necessarily mean you're in road rage. It's the continuous use of a horn along with gestures, cutting one off, and a lot of times, especially on the interstates that I work, you see a lot of tailgating or what they call check braking. And that is when they tend to pull in front of another vehicle that they've been trying to get past, and then they start pressing their brakes quickly to aggravate the person behind them instead of just continuing on their way.
Wow, that really sounds like toxic behavior. So let me ask, I think you spoke to this a little bit, but let me ask you again, to what degree do emotions or state of mind play for all of us before we get behind the wheel?
Well, I think if anything, it's about 90% emotions. And I
Wow.
think that's something that people tend not to think about when they get behind a wheel. I actually had a road rage incident in my area, several years ago, where a gentleman was upset about a female driver and followed her to her place of employment, which was a store. He got out of the store and continued to follow her in, and then assaulted her.
Wow.
And this gentleman does not or did not have at that time any type of background or any previous arrests or any criminal history, but he basically explained to me that he was upset that the girl wasn't driving to his liking, or wasn't allowing him to pass. So he thought he would, quote unquote, teach her a lesson. Unfortunately for him, not only does he looking at fines and vehicle and traffic violations, he was arrested for assault. So, when the end result is, was it worth it? Obviously, the answer is going to be no.
So you're telling me that this man didn't have a criminal record, but because of something that happened on the road or his behavior on the road, he wound up having a criminal record or facing criminal liability.
Correct, and he got arrested for assault. And even if somebody, say for example, follows somebody, and we see this sometimes when people are aggravated with another person, they'll follow them to somewhere. If someone's being followed and they think they're involved in a road rage or the victim of a road rage, we always suggest to pull over, go to a location you feel safe, whether a gas station or a store, and use your cell phone, and then call 911 and stay in your car. One of the things we do see an increase in is people threatening, whether it's a weapon of a gun or a bat or something else. Unfortunately, some of the road rage statistics that the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration has given us is that 66% of traffic fatalities have been caused by aggressive driving, but also you know 37% of those aggravating driving incidents involve some type of firearm, which is kind of an alarming statistic.
Wow. Wow. So obviously, should drivers be more self-aware even before they get behind the wheel?
Well, I mean, certainly be aware. And one of the things is, if you're having a bad day, if you just got some bad news, and we've had that happen too, where people just not having a good day, and they're letting their emotions take over. And that's certainly, they need to think in the back of their minds, is this something that, should you be driving? And emotions can be something that, they heard some bad news or they're having a bad day. Add to that, the fact is people are driving, and they want to get from A to B, but for some reason they let that road rage and that rage inside them, those emotions, take over. And that's something, like you said, you need to check before you get behind the wheel of a car.
Wow. So you're saying don't drive angry, huh?
Exactly. It's exactly what you should think before you get behind the wheel of a car.
All right. Um, so I know that road rage, you indicated that road rage is a set of behaviors, and it doesn't necessarily always wind up in a driver following another driver or a criminal incident, but still some of these behaviors also represent a hazard, like changing lanes and things like that.
Yes. So a couple of things like we talked about is examples of what they consider to be road rage is cutting off other vehicles, tailgating, blocking another vehicle so they can't use the lane or the passing lane, deliberately slamming into a vehicle. We've had that where, not in my case, not my troop, but there's a serious fatality where an individual decided to ram his vehicle into another person and then causing that death.
Mm,
Certainly they're in jail for a murder and
wow.
in criminal negligent homicide, which usually comes to, you don't see the murder charge as much as you see what they call criminal. Sorry, let me start over. For me, it's some of these criminal investigations include whether or not somebody was using their vehicle as an assault weapon.
Wow.
I mean, you talk about people getting out of the vehicle, but certainly somebody could also use their vehicle to try to hurt someone. We had a case just this weekend where an individual was driving through a rest stop on a thruway, was angry for whatever reason and tried to hit another party. And then when that trooper was on site, he tried to run the trooper over.
Oh
So
my.
luckily, those injuries did not occur, and the individual was taken into custody. But you got a number of things to worry about, and that's something we try to remind motorists that even though you may be upset about somebody giving you the finger or shouting at you,
Hmm.
you don't know that other person's mental state.
Hmm.
And if they're another thing to consider is they may be under the influence of a narcotic or drug, and not in the mindset that you would think. You get out of your vehicle and this person may have a weapon. So we tell people to use 911. Call us if you remind yourself the other driver is just having a bad day. If that's the case, avoid eye contact and continue on your way, unless that person has done something that would be deemed something that we need to investigate.
How do you feel about if you see hazardous behavior on the road ahead of you, just ahead of you. Like you see people
Sure.
changing lanes and all that. You recommend just
Sure.
dropping back.
Exactly. Drop back, and then if it's something that needs to be addressed, certainly we ask people to contact 911. We get all the time with we what we call a point of information. It may not have the information, everything, but get a description of the vehicle, if possible, get a plate number, and call 911 and report that rage, and then let us investigate it. And if you'll normally leave your name and number, and if we need to get in contact with you, if you're still on your way to your place, certainly we can get back in touch with you. But letting us know is the first thing people should do when they witness something like that.
Something that I've always been curious about is that people who are trying to see road rage and they're trying and in trying to do the right thing, may
Yeah.
whip out their cell phones and then commit the crime of using their cell phone in the car while they're driving.
Well, one of the things that you have to keep in mind is you can use your phone to report an incident. So if you're calling 911 with your cell phone out, that's not against the law.
Oh my, that's really good information. Um,
Yeah.
so uh, please tell me again, what should people do just in general if they believe they're victims of road rage? Just kind of go through the steps for me.
One of the things, just again, one of the things they should do is just remind themselves that the other driver is in a different state of mind than you are. You want to avoid making the situation worse by aggravating the situation. Avoid eye contact if possible. Get a description if it's something that you want to report. Certainly call 911. Give us a description and possibly a plate number, and then continue to drive safely to a location. If you want to stop and you feel this person's continuing to harass you or follow you, again, call 911 first, and then pull over in a position that you feel comfortable in, a location that's well lit, that there's other people there, and again, stay in your vehicle until law enforcement gets there.
All right. So just a couple of more questions here. It feels like to me that there might be some other behaviors, even that everybody does, that
Sure.
engender road rage behaviors. In other words, and the thing I think of off the top of my head is, okay, you don't allow yourself enough time to get where you're going, and suddenly you're
Yeah.
behind the. Okay, so could you talk to that? Speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, I think a lot of people in today's world, certainly, especially with cell phones and the advancement of technology, people are in a hurry to get from A to B. And so they're trying to do multi things, and driving is not something they're thinking about when they get behind a wheel of a car, especially this time of year. You got the end of the year, you have Christmas season, shopping season. You have a lot going on in people's minds. You got the pandemic. So you got a lot of people thinking about a lot of different things when they're driving or get behind a wheel. And then when they add to that possible traffic congestion, especially
Mm.
in the high traffic areas, they perceive that as sometimes as something that's making their life worse. They start to act out by shouting, using obscene gestures, tailgating, and again, what we recommend is not to be drawn into their way of behavior. Certainly, we want you to report it, but we don't want you to take anything in your own hands, because you don't know what the circumstances are, and whether this person may be armed.
Oh my. Okay. And speak to me from your experience. I mean, it seems like the road is hazardous enough as it is.
It
Um,
is.
yeah.
I mean, yeah, certainly, you have enough going on in what's going on out there. And certainly I don't want to alarm people that, this is happening every minute of the day, but certainly we are seeing it more and more. But I think it's more or less, people are now understanding and identifying what it is, and they're able to contact 911, thankfully using their cell phones, and then reporting it, and then we're able to interview them. Now, we've also had cases where it may not be a situation where the person's in a road rage, they have had a medical event. And we see this sometimes where people get involved in a crash. People think they may be under the influence of alcohol. It turns out they had a medical event, or sometimes they're trying to get someone's attention. So certainly pay attention, and we recommend people, if they see something, say something.
Beautiful. Anything else to add by way of summing up?
No, I think you've asked all the questions.